This is Jung Kim. I'm Janice McCoy, and we are Double Helix Review. And today we are reviewing The Three Body Problem by, say his name for me?
I think it's Cixin Liu.
Cixin Liu, who is a best-selling science fiction author from China. And the book was translated by Ken Liu.
Who is also an award-winning sci-fi writer.
Right. Yes. So, a lot of talent here.
Yeah. So let's give you a summary of what this book is about. So it moves between China's Cultural Revolution, present-day China, or like not too distant future, and the virtual computer world. This novel investigates the mystery of why modern-day scientists are committing suicide in alarming numbers. Wang Miao, a Chinese physicist, begins to get an idea of why when he starts seeing very mysterious visions, specifically an ominous countdown that no one else can seem to see. He turns to Yi Wenjie, the mother of one of the dead physicists, whose own work in science may hold the key to understanding what is happening to him.
So, did it work for us?
I think yes. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
With some caveats, I think, for general audiences, which we'll get to in a minute.
That's true.
So, what worked? Well, I really enjoyed the whole concept of the three-body problem, which I'm not a scientist. I didn't know anything about.
Me neither, until
the book. And the book does explain it really well, but I found it useful to look it up on my own in advance, because it waits a little while before it unfolds what this problem is and why it's important. And I really liked how he used it to create an alien civilization and to speculate on this alien civilization and how it would be affected by a gravitational problem that exists in the real world.
Right. So the cover of the hard copy that I have, the hardback, actually does have exactly what you're describing, which of course I didn't bother to look at until after I finished the book. But you have a clue in the cover if you have the hardback copy.
So I found it thought-provoking and interesting, and it really grapples with some real science. And so this book would be, I think, especially interesting to people who are into science in a big way, especially astronomy, physics, astrophysics.
I agree. I think for me, what was really interesting about the book was definitely how it incorporated all these different things, like the physics, the astronomy, the history.
The Cultural Revolution.
The Cultural Revolution. Do you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, I was taken aback, not by what happens in the scenes of the Cultural Revolution, but thinking about who was writing it and who the original audience was, and to think of this as a best-selling Chinese book. It does not pull any punches when it critiques the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah, in fact, it's a pretty harsh condemnation of the whole thing, actually.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Right.
Yeah, there's no moment of, oh, but this is beneficial. No, it's not.
So that was startling to me and fascinating, and it makes me want to know more about sort of the contemporary Chinese political situation that would allow this not just to be printed and widely circulated, but, as you pointed out, the translation is partially funded by the Chinese government. So they're paying to have this story promulgated throughout the English-speaking world.
I know, it's really staggering if you think about it. Especially when we know of dissident artists who are still, in extremely harsh situations and incarceration. It's
exile and
exactly. It's really staggering. I agree.
And we have no explanation for it.
No, we don't.
But really interesting. So there were some things for me anyway. Oh, do you want to talk about anything else that worked for you? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no. I think the historical references were really fun. I did enjoy it. It was one of those funny things. If you see the course of the book, you'll see references to Western and Eastern civilizations, and it's kind of amusing to go through it because of the they're clearly very cheeky references. The kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of references, and it's kind of fun. There's just two things I wanted to point out. The first one is the Three Body website for the game actually does exist. Yeah, you should try looking it up. It's www.threebody.net, and it has a countdown. And
ominous countdown.
An ominous countdown. The website that's referenced for the Morse code to actually understand the cosmic microwave radiation is in fact real as well, and you can take a look at that too.
Cool. So what didn't work as well for me, I enjoyed the hardcore science in the novel. I can imagine that there are many readers who would not enjoy it quite so much.
There is a lot. It's a heavy dosage every time. It's a heavy dosage.
So be warned.
Yeah.
If you're not really that interested in science, this is, there is science fiction out there for you.
Yeah.
There's science fiction that takes its science very loosely and focuses more on character and plot.
Yeah, it doesn't explain the whys.
Right, doesn't bother
or how it happened.
Right. This is not that book.
No.
And I felt like it did that sometimes at the cost of things like plot and character.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things we actually said was in the beginning of the book, in both my version and your version, which is
I had the Kindle version.
Yeah. There was actually a list of characters. You don't need that because there are only like 3 or 4 characters that you really need to pay attention to, and you will in fact only remember 3 or 4 characters. Yes, there's a cast of thousands, but everyone else just kind of is. They're kind of there, but not really important.
They don't have any kind of depth, and even the main characters. I wouldn't say they don't have depth. They do have depth. But I thought plot. I mean, if I really sat down and tried to outline what happens in the book, not much happens. It's more like the whole book is an explanation of why this one person chooses the action that she takes. Yeah. It's really more that. Yeah. I would agree with you that the plot itself is not something that drives this giant book. Yeah. It's really more of a exposition book. It's a thought experiment. Like, right. What would civilization look like if we had 3 suns in sort of eccentric orbit around the Earth? Right. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, what would your reaction be if you found out there were aliens? Yeah. Also, right, coming from the actual Earth, how would you respond to finding out there's alien life? Right. But yeah, in terms of plot, I would agree it's not going to be what's driving this book. Anyway. This book. Interesting to see what happens, because this is the first of, do we know how many? A trilogy. Trilogy. Yeah. How appropriate. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing that was kind of a little strange for me was, I think it was kind of, it was weird because it captures certain things which I agreed with and certain things I didn't agree with. So, yeah, so for example, there's this whole thing explaining how there's this anti-science movement. And I actually do feel that that's what's happening nowadays. Oh, yeah. I feel absolutely. Like there is on the one hand a very strong popular willpower that wants to know more about science, but then on the other hand there is like another part of society that basically does not want to know or care. Or they don't. And they're against. They're actively against people who talk about the scientific effects of things. So that was kind of interesting. I feel like they distrust sources often. They're always looking for conspiracies and reasons why the science is faked or whatever. It's not that they're necessarily against science; it's they don't believe the science. But in a way, that's basically what the conclusion becomes, right? Because they don't sit there and refute each argument. They just say, "Well, no, we can't really believe that because the source is questionable." Right, because you're paid for by the company. Exactly. So, in that way, it was capturing something that I kind of feel like is happening now. Yeah, yeah. Which is weird because this book was written in 2006 and it was written in China, ostensibly talking about only China. So it was very strange. The other thing that I found really strange was actually because of precisely what Janice just talked about the fact that this book is partially funded in its translation by the Chinese government. I just still don't understand what the real implication is of me reading this book.
I'm sure, and maybe I'm thinking too much of it, but to me, it was just one of the strangest things. After having
you
read
feel
the book,
like the
it's
Chinese
odd.
government is trying to manipulate you somehow.
Yeah, I feel a little bit manipulated. I don't know. Probably just me. Yes.
Well, like we said, we can't account for the support of the current communist regime for the bloody critique of the Cultural Revolution. So I guess our conclusion is a really fascinating book for cultural reasons, for scientific reasons.
Yeah.
I'm very glad I read it. I definitely will be trying the second one, but I wouldn't recommend it without reservations for at least some readers.
Yes, I would agree. It's really for the hardcore science fans, but for even those of you who aren't, I would recommend looking into it anyway, just because of all the historical and political facts that are packed into it as references. The way that they're played out are interesting.
If you're interested in China at all, this is great. And the science, it wasn't over my head. It was very carefully explained, which is kind of a miracle considering it's a translation of a Chinese novel about high-level physics concepts, and I'm not a physicist, and I don't know anything about. I don't know much about China or Chinese, so it's not inaccessible. Yeah. I'm just not sure how much pleasure everyone would take from it.
That's true. It is packed with those things. So.
Okay.